What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and oh boy, even more news coming out on The Last of Us 2, including an article that says there's a wokeness problem, new censorship for the game, and Neil Druckmann responds. First and foremost, here's the article. The Last of Us Part 2 has a wokeness problem, but it's not what you think. The Last of Us Part 2 is a massive success, topping sales charts and dominating the conversation. I mean, I don't know if you could call it a massive success just yet, but it is out of the gate very strong. They definitely fooled a lot of people. The issue is, though, is where the conversation leaves us. This article will include light spoilers to discuss the discourse, and it's been a while since top-selling game was this divisive. Really? How about Battlefield? It's not just a difference in opinion. Much of the criticism is based on the game's, quote, wokeness factor. No, again, this is going to be a full article of all negative criticism is from bigots. Even though the DLC, which is basically entirely about Abby's coming out and girlfriend and all this stuff, was exceedingly well reviewed. All right? So, no, is a simple Google search will disprove you, like, entirely. The user score on Metacritic sits at 4.6, which is actually up from the 3 or so where it was shortly after release. Many of those low scores take the issue with the story. Naughty Dog took the risk of morphing the main antagonist into the protagonist, and it's the kind of risk I felt made the game great. Shocking. A game journalist liked the game? Oh, I'm shocked. No, seriously, I'm really shocked that a game journalist shares the exact same opinion as every other game journalist. Aren't you shocked? The other low scores, here's what some of them have to say. I cherry-picked 3 out of how many? 3 out of how many? Let's just take a look. Are we gonna do this? Do I need to teach a game journalist about statistics and data, and whether or not 3 out of 90,000 reviews are enough to build an entire article around it? Is that what we're going to have to do today? Am I going to have to teach this game journalist about statistical significance? I mean, is that what we're doing here? Because I'll do it. I'll do it. 92,000 reviews. 92,000 reviews. You picked 3. Other low scores, in an effort to pander to certain demographics, the story takes a complete thematic nosedive and so-called representation of minorities surviving in an apocalyptic wasteland. But that's true. Focuses on SJW stuff more than actual players. Maybe. I'm sure this could have been better than if someone didn't get into this project. That someone is Anita Sarkeesian, which referenced GG Target Sarkeesian. The game's subreddit is full of unfounded claims that Abby is trans. Well, she's not trans. We know that. It's just a woman that looks like a man. They exist. Bodybuilding women exist. It's just strange to me where she would get roids in an apocalypse, but whatever. An offense at the inclusion of a trans character at all. Again, no evidence shown. These criticisms are misogynist, all the words, phobic. And they also move the conversation away from very valid and useful critiques of The Last of Us Part 2. What do you mean? The overwhelming majority of people dislike the game. Why? Because of how they treated Joel. I mean, how can you miss that? You have to actively be trying to not report facts. Oh, wait, it's a game journalist. Oh, anyway. Japan censored the game. Isn't that interesting? Japanese release of The Last of Us Part 2 censors the dude-on-dude scene. The now infamous spicy scene from The Last of Us Part 2, which graphically depicts the first few moments of, weirdness between Abby and Owen, is censored in the Japanese game release. It's documented by Censored Gaming. An account runs across several social media platforms dedicated to cataloging various instances of censorship. Good. Sounds like a good account to follow. Saying The Last of Us Part 2 was censored in Japan due to Japanese console rating system and its rules forbidding certain explicit content. To abide with these regulations, the game fades to black not long after the characters begin kissing, cutting out that spread. I mean, that's probably what they should have done in the first place. But again, I have no problem with this existing. Just not, I don't care. I don't need that in my video games, but I'm not saying it should be banned or censored. I just want Sony to be, consistent, like, with Devil May Cry 5 or, any of these other games that seem to have all these lens flares covering everything up. When the existence of the in-game scene was first revealed, Naughty Dog VP and The Last of Us director Neil Druckmann promoted the scene as, quote, tasteful. This particular instance of censorship is sadly quite ironic, considering Sony has made a company policy of censoring even the slightest risque content in Japanese games, only to have this pretentiously lauded scene of their own production censored upon its release in Japan. Haha, that is kind of funny. That is kind of funny. Now, Neil Druckmann actually came out and addressed some of the biggest criticisms about Joel. I think this is a good, interesting article here. The Last of Us 2 director addresses fans' big criticism about Joel. Now, obviously, everybody, if you're watching my videos, you know that Abby, the person you're forced to play as, ends Joel, and nobody likes that. By the way, I know a lot of my viewers are not subscribed, just happen to be watching. I do a lot of videos, cover a lot of topics from not just video games, movies, music, anything pop culture, basically everything except straight up politics on this channel. I upload multiple times a day, at least 6 days a week, usually 7. And if you enjoy that, I hope that you'll hit that subscribe button down below. I hope I've earned that today. Talking about the Joel criticism in particular, Druckmann reminds fans that people change, people evolve, and that the Joel you see in the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2, that's 4 years of having lived in this community that's safe. 4 years of, like, they meet people on the outside and bring them in. They trust them. Talking about his final scene, Druckmann continues, I've seen a lot of, why did Joel and Tommy trust these people? It's not an ambush they're walking into. It's not an ambush. They're not walking into an ambush. What Joel is doing here is sizing everybody up except Abby, because he believes this girl who he just saved and who's the same age as Ellie is safe. That wouldn't be a threat. So it catches him off guard. On top of that, Druckmann also reminds players that Joel is looking for hunters. These are not hunters. These are regular people, just like the people that live in Jackson, and Joel has become a regular person who lives in Jackson as well. Evidently, a lot of thought went into the reason why Abby's plan to end Joel succeeded, with the emphasis being on the former protagonist having settled into a more comfortable lifestyle and trying to turn a new leaf. Well, I don't think it worked out for you with the majority of fans, but ultimately it's not like, nobody's buying the game. I mean, I reported yesterday that it is the fastest selling PS4 exclusive. Now, again, that's always kind of misleading, right? It's not like there are a million PS4 exclusives, and PS4 exclusives that released 3 years ago just had a much smaller market, right? Now, they could have purchased it by now. I think that's fair, but this is just talking about the speed at which it sold 3 or 4 million copies. There are more PlayStation 4 owners. We've reached basically the peak. That's why the PlayStation 5 is coming out this year, right? The PlayStation 4 market is almost as big as it's going to get. Let's say it's 98% of what it's going to get. 3 years ago, it might have been at 70%. So there are just more buyers. Also take into account that everyone's stuck at home right now. Also take into account that the game did sell well and had 7 years of press. So, I mean, it earned it, but, talking about sales numbers can be a little misleading. And the coverage continues to exist. I think it's funny. The question will really be, is this going to get over a 5? I don't know. 100,000 reviews. It's almost at 50-50 right now. It's almost like you should only read the mixed reviews at this point, because there's just so many 0s and 10s that you should just omit them. But you look at some of these reviews, these are not just, look at this. These are the type of reviews that game journalists want to omit. Look at all the work that Matrix Rebel put in here, and nobody will probably ever read this. You know what? I'm going to give them the credit. I'm going to do it for them. Them. I don't know who it is. Oh boy, where to begin? If you're like me, you played The Last of Us Part 1 back on the PS3. The game had stunning graphics, sounds, good gameplay, but things that made it the best games on the platform was the beauty in the level designs, and above all, that magnificent storyline involving two main characters with their struggle to survive again and make sense of the world. That recipe landed the game of the year back then on the PS3 and again on PS4 when it was released as remastered version, which I also bought. I had 2 Last of Us 1 copies total spanning 2 systems. It was that good. Fast forward to today, to part 2 of the iconic game. Let's start with what it got right from the recipe from the old game. Graphics, sound, gameplay. Sadly, this is where it starts to go downhill, way downhill. Storyline. I enjoyed the game for about 2 hours, then it happens. Death is understandable in a game of an apocalyptic setting. It can be sad, but it can elicit a positive experience for the player. Flashback to Final Fantasy VII when Aerith meets the Grim Reaper with an 8-foot blade. It was traumatic, yet it didn't leave a horribly bad aftertaste by the end of the game. The Last of Us 2, though, it felt unnecessarily rushed, like someone couldn't wait to get rid of one of the characters. Then, to make matters worse, you have to play as a character who ended such a beloved one from the first game. The theme of revenge is done relatively like any other game or movie, and it doesn't really make the player feel much excitement. I mean, and we just read the article, right? I thought it had a wokeness problem. Where's this person talking about all the wokeness, SJW stuff? I mean, most of these reviews aren't talking like that. But, you know, I'm not a game journalist, I suppose. So, I mean, I suppose I can do the absolute bare minimum of looking around instead of just cherry picking. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.